You know what? Absolutely epic. But for whatever reason, your sound is not yet coming through on the StreamYard. I don't know why. I'm not hearing you through my head. I'm just hearing a faint echo of you
Oh,
on
wow.
Instagram. There you are. There you are.
How about now? Wow. I went in with a cold mic. Amateur mistake. Apologies about that, guys. If you came in, we'll have to crop that off on the edit. But anywho, I was just sharing with you guys at the very, very start, Dr. Bob, if you forgive me for that little blunder, just to give us some context, guys, if you're joining us in our Miracle group. Gut health, guys, is really the foundations of our well-being. And if you're not prioritizing this, or you've really struggled with your health, then you really should look at the core. You know, there's something special about looking to the root cause of what is going on in the body. And nothing really represents us so much like the gut, because of the connections to the entire body. So, Dr. Bob, this is some area that you've really leaned in on as a clinical nutritionist, but also as someone who works the mechanics of the body for over 3 decades, as to how this all ties together. So my first question to you, Dr. Bob, is why is digestion so connected to overall health? And why is it something that we should prioritize as part of our well-being routine?
We can go back thousands of years, and the importance of the gut has been very, very, very recognized. So those that are on the StreamYard or Facebook group, Hippocrates was just a little off. He said all disease starts in the gut. But keep in mind, why not go to the opposite of that? All health starts in the gut. So we have this amazing process where if we put good stuff in our body and we have good functioning in terms of how our body breaks it down into pieces that we can absorb and assimilate and utilize, well, then we have many great steps to good health. And, you know, even if you had a good gut, keep in mind that malnutrition, #1 cause of death on the planet for many years running. And if you don't nourish yourself right, you're going to have a hard time keeping your gut healthy anyways. So connections to absolutely everything. In fact, where would we be without a gut? Well, we wouldn't be having this conversation. That's for sure. Because you've got to be able to absorb those nutrients, make good use of it. And the other side of it, get rid of the waste as well.
Speaking of waste, this is something that I don't think many people talk about too much, but they should, because it's really representing what's going on with the overall system. But what's the ideal turnaround for the digestive system for elimination?
You know, I'm going to answer that a couple different ways, because you had sent a question, what's the ideal timeline for optimal digestion? And I want to address that first, because we should have more downtime than uptime. Now we've got this world of intermittent fasting, and everybody, and I do mean everybody, would benefit from at least 14 hours a day of no food in the gut. And then how much time should they be eating? Anywhere from 6 to 10 hours. But once it goes in, you know, there's some really good timelines where they actually say you should chew it for a minute. And here's what I promise you. If you chewed your food for a minute and time yourself some time, when I first timed myself chewing, it was embarrassing. It was like chew, chew, swallow, chew, chew, swallow. You know, and they're saying, okay, 20 chews, 40 chews. But if you chew for a minute, you will eat less. And here's the data, about 11% less. And we know that most people are digging their grave with their teeth. Either they're eating too much, or they're eating too much bad stuff, or the worst of all things is too much and all of it's bad. But once it's in the body, you know, then you're going to chew it for a minute. It's going to take some time in the esophagus. Then we've got the upper digestive tract, lower digestive tract, but anywhere from 18 to 22 hours from the time you swallowed it to the time it passes out the back end. Eric, I was looking as you were providing the intro, and someone on Instagram said, hey, I've got an inflamed colon. Way too many people do. And I listened in prep for this to a couple of different gut lectures. And one of the world's greatest authorities, Michael Gerber, he was asked, listen, we got the small intestine, which is essentially where we're absorbing the nutrients. And then we've got the colon, which is the garbage disposal system. And the person asked a really good comment. He says, look, when you look at colon cancer, a top killer, there's almost no small intestine cancer. So here's the deal. You know, if you're nourishing yourself and putting good stuff in that small intestine, and you're getting rid of the stuff from the large intestine, which, by the way, you don't need anymore, that's all garbage with the exception of water that you could reabsorb, then you're going to be okay. And keep in mind, 18 to 22 hours from the time you swallow it is the time it should come out, and more downtime, more time with no food in your gut than with food in your gut.
Nice. Just in regards to this statistic here, I'm not sure what year this was taken, but I'm sure the improvements aren't really coming along hard and fast. But bowel disorders, this seems to be so common. And looking at some of the stats here I saw from your slide here is pretty significantly taxing on the system. Can you just discuss what's going on here with a lot of people, Dr. Bob, that these numbers seem to be increasing across the board?
Well, I always talk about the gut, and I always say we want to be able to answer 5 questions. Number one, what kind of food are you eating? So now we go to this part of the world, the modern world, and people have their gallbladders removed and they have their appendix removed and they're taking acid blockers. But you go to Africa, there's almost never an appendectomy. There's no gallbladder issues. They're not taking acid blockers. So you come to realize, wait a minute, if we put whole natural stuff in, we're going to be okay. Number two, how's your digestion? And, without getting too technical on people, our stomach make hydrochloric acid. It's a very powerful acid. I tell people, if I put a drop of acid on my computer screen, on my camera, whatever, it'll eat a hole in it. But why doesn't it eat a hole in our stomach? Well, it's because we have good mucus protection. And by the way, later when we get to reishi, we're going to find out it's good for making hydrochloric acid, good for making mucus, good for killing off infection like Helicobacter pylori. But back to this question again. So when people are making bad food choices and they're stressed and they're toxic, then every part of their digestive system is going to be altered. And then as food sits and rots in the gut longer than it should, they start feeding the bad microbiome, bad bugs in our gut, which increase toxicity, increase inflammatory process, ultimately leads to leaky gut, food reaction. And if we were to look at those reactions, the number of people actually going to the emergency room with severe life-threatening anaphylactic reactions has gone up by 500 over 1,000% over the last couple decades. And the top experts are saying it's because we're messing with our food. We're messing with Mother Nature. We're creating genetically modified proteins that humans have never been exposed to before. So you start looking at all these issues. Gut health is a big problem in the part of the world that doesn't do things natural, but not much of a problem at all in parts of the world where they still honor the land and honor their bodies.
Yeah, I think this is something as well you brought up on a number of calls, was quality and really looking at real food. And I just want to touch on this first of all, because sometimes people don't really pay attention to themselves and what they're eating and the ratio of what they're eating. So I'd love to ask you, Dr. Bob, why is the ratio of foods that people have, as well as the quality, so important for people to just have a healthier gut?
Some of the digestive processes don't go well together. So, there have been books written about food combining. One of my best mentors, Dr. George Goodhart, still contributing to the health of functional medicine of the planet in his 90s. I think he was the first chiropractor to work with the U.S. Olympic team, kinesiologist, nutritionist, acupuncturist, just a brilliant soul. But I saw him in the early 1990s. And he made a statement. He was talking about food combining. He says, look, anybody in this room, if I took a picture of you now and took a picture of you a decade from now, I would be able to tell you from that picture how many of you are combining your foods properly. So when you combine your foods properly, which means fruit should always be eaten alone, vegetables are very flexible. You can eat vegetables with protein. You can eat vegetable with starches, but don't mix starches and proteins. Well, when you do it that way, you ease the digestive system, you ease the burden, you decrease the gas, you decrease the toxicity that you're creating, you increase the efficiency at which you absorb nutrients. And have they done really good studies? I might have to go back to PubMed and see if they've actually done it. But here's what I know: recommending it for over 30 years. Having mentors that recommended it for over 50 years, practicing it for over 30 years, here's what I can tell you: at least 9 out of 10 meals I'm going to ideally combine. And the 1 in 10 that I don't, I probably regret that I didn't. So could I get better? Yeah, I could. But at least 9 out of 10 is where I'm going. And I think that's a pretty good target. If we do 90% of things right, we're going to be okay. But here's the simple deal. If you eat foods that don't combine properly, then they won't digest properly. You won't absorb properly. And you're going to create circumstances in your gut that you just don't want.
Yeah, this is something that was new to me, because in theory, it sounded, that makes sense. But in application and execution, sometimes can be a little tricky. particularly if you're combining certain, Asian cuisine where there's a starch maybe mixed in with proteins and vegetables. So sometimes if you overindulge, that can get a little bit uncomfortable and heavy in the gut. But since I've really shifted that, actually veggies first and in isolation, and then bringing in my proteins afterwards, feeling a whole lot better, actually enjoy my food a whole lot more, and think about what's the sensible thing to do, rather than just shovel as much food into you. Even if you're really hungry, it's the time to kind of go get a good big glass of water before your food to settle prep your digestive system, and then start slowly.
Eric, I want to share a tip from a mentor going back over 30 years ago. And this was one of the top digestive tips I ever heard. And here's what he said: I always want to walk away from the table feeling at least as good as I did when I sat down. Now, that's going to be really good advice coming up on Thanksgiving, because, here in the States, I have to admit, there was my early years before I was a nutritionist where I would overeat Thanksgiving dinner, and I find myself undoing my belt, undoing my, my top button. And then after you do it, you go, what? Why did I do that? That was about the silliest thing I could do. Why not leave the table feeling as good as I sat down, and then go back for a little more later? It'll be there.
Yeah. I think it's just the sensational high you get of, well, if it's there, I can, so why not? And I think you have to make those mistakes a few times to go, well, I can really give a good case study of my own history of, I felt like absolute trash and I ruined the meal because I overdid it. And it was like I hit a wall with the amount of chemical imbalance that happened as a consequence. And around holidays as well, we talk more about this coming into the holiday season, but if you start combining that with alcohol, no wonder people have such a slump week coming out of December and into January, because they've just terrorized their system with
Eric,
too much information.
I want to ask you a question. I'm going to put you on the spot. Would you be open to creating like a 21-day get back your body challenge starting January 1? And I think we should start promoting that now. I can't think of a better person than you. And well, if we're going to do tag team, Issa always makes everything better. So, maybe the two of you could just do that for everybody here and now, and share this with your friends. If you want to be in the best shape of your life, why not make that happen? And why not have you guide them through it?
Yeah, no, absolutely, Dr. Bob. I appreciate that. And of course, I was thinking about that recently of having discussions with Isa just about a platform of support, because, getting on the right track and in such a way that makes you feel like you're progressing, you're not hurting yourself. You're doing it for the right reasons, and you're finding a way in to explore and play, because I think that's what's missed a lot with conventional training, is that it's all hard graft and it's too similar, and it can be very repetitive, and for some people, they just don't like being around other people sweating and making noise and grunting and loud music. They just like to be in their own domain. So yeah, absolutely, Dr. Bob, we've got some ideas for the new year. And of course, we will be promoting this in our health community, guys. And if you need help on your journey, the information and the tools you're going to get in our community will definitely serve you in some capacity. And we're excited to be able to share that. But just in regards to this, Dr. Bob, this is something as well that I find can be confusing, is the layout of food. So some of the principles we've talked about, food combining and getting that down. Can you just lean in on some of these fundamental principles that are kind of universally accepted now, that people go, okay, this is where we should be leaning towards when it comes to our nutrition?
Sure. Well, let's start with the first bullet there, which is emphasize whole foods. And I read an article well over 20 years ago that it said, look, what you eat probably is nowhere near as important as how much processing it's gone through. So it's almost like processing was the kiss of death to nutrition and food and health value. And if it's not the kiss of death, it certainly is a couple of kicks in the direction towards less healthy. When you start looking at getting enough quality protein comes from the Greek word, which means of primary importance. And I always loved, and I miss him, Charles Poliquin. He and I lectured at a number of different venues all over the world. He says, imagine you have two people that are trapped on two desert islands. One has nothing but protein to eat. The other has nothing but carbohydrate to eat. And then they're both discovered 6 months later. Well, what'd you find on the carbohydrate island? A skeleton, because the guy can't survive. What'd you find on the protein island? The guy is leaner. The guy is stronger. The guy is healthier. His diabetes has gone away. His autoimmunity has gone away. His high blood pressure has gone away. And by the way, they're seeing that with the carnivore diet. Even though we're not carnivores, we are omnivores. Our whole digestive tract speaks that. But here's what I think we do know. People are not getting enough of high quality, good proteins. And then they're getting genetically modified foods way too often. That is bad for every cell of their being. Lots of vegetables. And I'm even going to throw in fruits. And there's people like Robert Lustig that are anti-fruit because fruit has fructose. Here's what I'm going to tell you. If you're physically active and you're nourishing yourself with whole foods, including plenty of fruits, plenty of vegetables, they are not going to be an issue. Now, if you're sitting on the couch and you're eating the sugar sweetened canned fruit, that's more sugar than anything else, that doesn't count. That is candy with a natural label is what that is. And by the way, I like to call fruit nature's candy. A few things better than a good melon, a good mango, a good pineapple. All these things are amazing. Then when we start looking at nutrient density, here's what I'll tell you. As you process it, you reduce the nutrition, you increase the toxicity, and you get calorie density, not nutrient density. You get good, high quality red meats, fruits, vegetables. Those are nutrient dense, water dense, mineral dense, antioxidant dense, beautiful. Eat slowly. That's kind of what we were talking about. Chew for a full minute. As hard as that is, if you did that, you'd probably start with a smaller plate and realize, whoa, I'm more full than I thought it would be. And minimize processed foods. Well, what's minimum? 0. Can you get there? Well, get as close as you can because those are rock solid recommendations.
I love it. I really enjoyed that, Dr. Bob. Yeah, and this is something that is coming up more and more now is the microbiome. And for some people, they may not have heard that term or really being curious about what that is. But this is a real game changer when it comes to the connectivity of the gut, the balance of the gut, how everything communicates as a system within the system of the body. So I'd love you just to share what is the microbiome, how does it work, and what is the relevance to it for the greater scheme of our overall health?
You know, I might even want to lobby for changing the term to macrobiome. And I often share that there's a book entitled 10% Human, and it describes all of us. It describes all of our DNA because over 90% of our genetic information is from the bugs that are all over our body, not just in the oral cavity, in the digestive tract, in the female reproductive tract, in the skin, in the sinuses, absolutely everywhere. And Eric, when I started doing a little viral research, because the world was interested in a few viruses over the last couple years, there's estimated to be 10 quintillion viruses. That's 1,000,000 trillion viruses. So how do we stay protected against them? By eating good food, by managing our microbiome, by managing our stress, really doing all the Magnificent Seven, eating right, drinking right, thinking right, moving right, sleeping right, pooping right, talking right every single day. And keep in mind, they all are very powerful influencers of gut and gut health, as is gut health impacts all of the Magnificent Seven. And there are so many people, whether we go back to, Hippocrates 2,000 years ago, or probably the majority of functional medicine doctors now, they're saying, look, start with the gut, start with the diet, start with cleaning things up there. And part of that has to be the microbiome, and probiotics are part of my Magnificent Seven supplementation that I'm going to use for everybody. Put good bugs in and life gets better.
I love that. And just these, I come across these earlier today, and I was just blown away by the amount of, would you say, not side effect, but direct effect of.
Yeah, they are direct effects.
Of non-functional or non-productive balance within the gut microbiome itself. And I'm just looking at some of the issues that arise on the left side of this chart here, sharing in our group here on Facebook. Pretty significant amount of problems that arise with whether it's inflammation in the gut or just the bad bugs running rampant at the core of your being, stealing all your food and pooping all over you, basically.
Well, and then we go with that number. 90% is what modern science says is the number of maladies that humans suffer with that can be traced directly back to the gut. For those that are on Instagram, we're talking rheumatoid arthritis, diabetes, and they only call type 1 and type 2 out, but type 3 is dementia. That's related to the gut. So is eczema. So is asthma. So is whether you're talking about inflammatory bowel, irritable bowel, a number of heart issues, fatty liver, which, by the way, is really one of the first signs of pre-diabetes, chronic kidney issues, brain health. And those are just a handful that are called out in this one graphic. But you would have a hard time picking anything or any system that people don't suffer with that we can't trace back to the gut consistently, or more reasonably back to poor gut choices.
You know, something I was listening to another podcast last week just in regards to digestive health, and they mentioned, as did a lot of different experts in that area, about leaky gut syndrome. What is that, Dr. Bob, and why is that such a big problem for everyone?
Well, very, very simply, if I were to swallow a penny, right? Most of us, you don't need to try this. I'm going to swallow it, and then sometime tomorrow, preferably 18 to 22 hours, it's going to pass out the backside. It never got into my system. So if something's in our gut, is it technically in our body? No, it's really, that is a protected environment. That's how we can have so many bugs there, and they're not infecting our body. By the way, if you damage the colon, you can get sepsis. There's some crazy number, 100,000 plus people die every year in the US from sepsis. So you don't want to get there. Sadly, I have a friend whose mother died from sepsis after a colonoscopy injury. You think colonoscopy is straightforward. She had a colonoscopy, they perforated the colon, she died of sepsis. How horrible for a screening that maybe didn't need to get done. But back to what's going on with our wonderful gut. If you have a leaky gut, things that you swallow that are not yet ready for your body to absorb get absorbed. And that can cause all kinds of inflammatory reaction, immune reaction. If that goes on long enough, serious problems can happen in the system. So my favorite way to seal and heal the gut is by being kind to it with really good foods. I often put people down to one food per meal, sometimes digestive enzymes, things like colostrum, reishi, vitamin D, glutamine. These are nutrients that are known to help seal and heal the gut. And the nice thing is they're all perfectly safe, have multiple benefits besides that, and no known toxicity. So if people want to add that to their protocol, why not? But the simple strategy, one really good food per meal, honor your body that way, and you'll go in a good direction towards making a lot of your gut better.
Nice. Thank you for clarifying that one, Dr. Bob. And something that I wanted to just circle back to again was the microbiome impact on someone who's struggling with their weight. You shared a number of studies that was kind of bizarre but amazing with these mice that I just thought, wow, that actually plays such a role. You can do all the exercise you want. You can think you're eating well, but if you have the wrong ratio of bugs in the gut, then you're going to absorb more calories than, let's say, your counterpart, friend or buddy or twin, if your microbiome is with this obese characteristic driving at the foreground of things. Can you just share what this obese microbiome is, and how does it throw your insulin sensitivity out of whack and help you or contribute to you absorbing much more calories than you typically should in any given meal, healthy or otherwise?
You know, a real practical example, I would often show a picture of a gorilla, 600 pounds of muscle. And I would ask, what does a gorilla eat? And people say leaves. Now, or the joke answer is a gorilla eats whatever he wants. But, a gorilla eats leaves. So I might ask you, Eric, pretty strong guy, how many leaves and leaves alone would you need to eat to put on about 600 pounds of muscle? And the reality is it's not going to happen, right? Because you are different and you have a different microbiome. So if you eat a salad and I eat a salad and Issa eats a salad, and hopefully most of our people eat a salad, most of that is going to go through as fiber. It's actually going to scrape and clean things on the way out, and it's going to get us a good cleansing, add bulk to our stool. But gorillas have bugs in their gut that literally eat fiber, and they poop out super high calorie, nutrient dense, calorie dense fatty acids. So, if I eat a nice bowl of spinach, I probably burn more calories chewing it than I get from it, whereas the gorilla might get 2,000 calories. Now, what they did that was so fascinating in terms of studies, and you look at this crossover, they had two identical human twins, and they grew up in a very similar environment. One became obese, the other stayed lean. And they said, well, let's try something weird. Let's do a fecal transplant. And Eric, when I heard about this study, I thought, what in the world are you doing? That sounds like the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. But they took feces from the backside of the obese twin and put it into the backside of an identical twin mouse. They did the same with the lean twin. And on the exact same diet, the exact same quality, the exact same quantity, the mouse that got the obese microbiome became obese. So what very simply happened was their bugs were converting fiber to fat and giving them high calorie meals. Now, what really opened my eyes on this is I had a wonderful elite Houston attorney consult with me about fat loss. And I have a reputation as being a functional medicine guy. So he came in and he said, look, Dr. Bob, I hear you're the guy for functional medicine gut. I have been trying to lose weight for a year. No success. I've got a great trainer. I've got a chef. We do everything all organic. I finally had my legal team look at it and say, what do you think is going on here? How could this all be wrong with me? And they came to the conclusion, the only thing it can be, my liver's good, my kidneys are good, my insulin's good, my thyroid's good, my diet's good, my chef is good, my exercise is good. The only thing it can be is the microbiome. So he asked me, can you help me with a fecal transplant? And I said, indirectly, I can. I will reach out to a pioneer in it, Dr. Sid Baker. We got on a 3-way call with Sid Baker, and Sid Baker told him, find an all-organic baby that's had an all-organic diet. By the way, said no shots for this baby because that changes the microbiome. Said get a little stool from the diaper, put it in saline, and stick it in your backside. Eric, he did this one time, and in the next handful of months, lost 60 pounds, where that was the only change. Now, listen, people can consult with Sid Baker. I'm not going to recommend that you do this because it's out of my scope of practice. Even though I can recommend good nutrition, I can recommend good probiotics. I can't recommend good feces, even though I can share the data with you. But in this case, and in many cases, they're finding that to be quite good. And Eric, I'm going to take another step. They started playing with these fecal transplants because people were dying from a very bad bug called Clostridium difficile. And they finally decided, okay, this patient's going to die. Maybe we can take feces from someone that beats C. diff and put it in their backside and see what happens. And the person recovered in just a few days. So listen, putting good stuff in the backside could have value for people that are really struggling. Do I think the rest of us need to do it? No, I think we need to put in all good stuff from the top and make sure we pass things out from the other side on a regular routine basis, like every day, multiple times a day, preferably.
Yeah. Wow. Do you think in that instance, Dr. Bob, if he wasn't getting the results he wanted, that was probably the better solution for him? Because I see a lot of people making silly mistakes.
I'm listen, Eric, when you look at what he went through, chef, personal trainer, food diary, nutrition diet, extensive labs, and then finally saying someone's missing something. What's missing? And this was early enough that even the functional medicine docs in Houston weren't doing anything with fecal transplants at that time. But I'll tell you what, if more people knew about that case, or at least refer to Dr. Sid Baker, he's on the East Coast, great functional medicine practitioner, pioneered fecal transplants with autistic patients in the 1990s, and had phenomenal brain changes after a single fecal transplant. And that led to a number of publications saying, look, autism problem's not in the brain, it's in the gut. It's probably both, but can you fix autism through the gut? Well, there's cases where they've done it. So why not give it a shot?
Wow. I think the concept or the idea for a lot of people will be like, I won't do that. I think culturally, a lot of people would just rather a pill or something that can throw on themselves easily that doesn't involve
the pharmaceutical industry was trying to come up with a poop pill. They were going to purify poop and put it in a capsule and sell it for $800. So
wow, if they weren't
I'd have a hard time swallowing that one, Eric. If I were going to do the poop pill, I might just fast track it up the other side. I mean, holy cow,
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say that they're shoveling enough for
Yeah, they are.
down people's
Yeah, they
throat at
are.
this point, but that's a different level altogether. But if you do know someone who's struggling, guys, and that sounds like something that would like to investigate, then please do, because I highly, highly warn everybody who listens to this that there are certain medications that are recommended for weight loss and different things that have lots of problems and complications. And I remember you made a post not so long ago about Ozempic, if I remember correctly,
Yeah.
Dr. Bob, that really can wipe people out and leave people in a terrible state of being. So do you want to just mention just what's problematic, not only just for gut health, but for your entire system, your organ system, if you're going to be taking something like that as a shortcut for losing weight or looking better and basically being a better version of yourself?
There are very few good shortcuts, but there can be some smart cuts. So there's people that I respect a lot, like Peter Attia. He best-selling author, great podcaster, was doing a residency on cancer surgery at Johns Hopkins. And he became so disenchanted with medicine, he stepped away from it for a period of time. Then when he stepped back, he said functional medicine, or what he's calling medicine 3.0, is the way to go. But he had a number of patients that came to him after taking Ozempic. And here's what he said. Everyone that he assessed had alarming lean tissue loss. If you're going to lose anything, you're going to want to lose the fat. You're not going to want to lose the lean. But here's another thing that they lost: the ability to experience satiety in response to pleasurable things, food and otherwise. Now, was it everybody? No. But imagine someone says, yeah, I'll help you lose that 10 pounds, but you'll never enjoy things that you enjoyed, whether we're talking dessert or physical pleasure or whatever. The pleasure centers just weren't as active. And at this point, it looks like it's not reversible. Hopefully they'll find something in time, but why even go down that path? Why not do what has been proven for tens of thousands of years? And that's taking good care of your body, mind, and spirit. And with a few little wrinkles, like nothing processed, better probiotics, and in extreme cases, maybe a healthy fecal transplant. There are better ways to do it than these drugs that definitely have a downside to them.
Yeah. I can't understand why people would choose to roll the dice, because they're getting that kind of information from someone who just doesn't maybe appreciate the underlying workings of how things really function well from a root cause standpoint, and that's just rolling the dice big time. But we want to just pivot to other solutions now with probiotics, prebiotics. I just love to just touch on that really quickly so people can get their heads around what are some of the typical pre and probiotics to help heal the gut and also help the gut to flourish. Some typical foods or certain foods that are listed here for prebiotics and of course probiotics. Can you just share what the difference is between both and
Sure.
The importance of getting in?
Well, I like the prebiotics for the most part that they have listed, but here's what I want to tell you. Everything eats a prebiotic. Your bugs are going to be exposed to it. So when they call things out like onions and asparagus and leeks and garlic, these are things that help the body to detoxify, and to some degree they kill off the bad bugs. Bananas they have listed as a prebiotic, a little high glycemic index for the majority of my people. Even bread, if you're going to put bread on there, I want you to put whole grain, non-gluten bread is something. Artichoke, by the way, is a really nice prebiotic, especially for fat loss. But now we start looking at probiotics. These are things that actually have already the microorganisms within them. People might think of classically like things like yogurt or kefir or cheeses or kimchi or miso soup or whatever people's absolute favorite would be. One thing that I found pretty fascinating is chocolate technically is both a probiotic and a prebiotic and a superfood. So if you get the right type of chocolate and not tons of sugar like so many people are doing with it, that would be really quite good. But if you pay attention to the prebiotics, you likely wouldn't need to supplement with probiotics, but this goes back millennia. Fermented foods go back a long time, and people know that they're quite good for the gut.
Love that. And something that we've been leaning on and sharing with the world for a number of years is another superfood, the king of all superfoods, which is reishi. I'd love just to touch on, Dr. Bob, this superfood, this medicinal mushroom has been in use now, I believe, for over 4,000 or 5,000 years of human use. But it's really a game changer when it comes to our well-being, as is another favorite of ours, cordyceps. Can you just share what are some of the benefits for digestive health that reishi has to offer us?
Well, let's start at the very, very top. If we actually looked at eating, if you get that, you will achieve satiety faster. So that's a good start. And then in terms of chewing, it's probably not going to change that at all. But once you get to the gut, the stomach itself, it improves the cells that make hydrochloric acid. It improves the cells that make mucus protection. So people are less likely to have any type of burning in their gut. And by the way, if they choose our coffee, which is infused with reishi, it's actually alkaline coffee. Then we start looking at the liver and gallbladder, and there's literally whole chapters of books written about reishi benefit on liver and gallbladder, pancreas, whether we're talking digestive or endocrine, whether we're talking insulin or the proteases, lipases, amylases. Great for the small intestine, great to seal and heal the leaky gut, great to enhance, and there's lots of enzymes even within reishi itself. And then we get to the colon. It's going to kill off bad bugs because it's got 79 components which are known to be antimicrobial, anti-parasite, anti-yeast, anti-fungus, but also feed the good. So reality is, from top to bottom and even above, because we can go to the brain and satiety, these are proven to be wonderful for every aspect of gut health.
Yeah, and inflammation is something we touched on a couple of weeks ago, which is just, it's the pathway to destruction for pretty much all illness and issues that we can be dealing with. But certainly in the gut, the inflamed wall of the intestines, the discomfort going through when you do have, let's say, an acid response in the body, or some people would describe it as acid reflux. What exactly is that, Dr. Bob, and how could reishi potentially help people who would struggle with that acid response?
Sure. So when we start talking about acid reflux, acid is going somewhere where we don't want it. If acid's in my stomach and my stomach has good mucus protection, I don't even know I have that acid. But if there's a problem in my upper gut and I get some of that acid into my esophagus, that could be something called a hiatal hernia, could be actually a physical problem, or even a physiological, where the tone of the sphincter is not held very well, where the muscle's gotten weak because the stomach acid has gone over time. People can burn holes in their gut. They can burn holes in their esophagus, and this can be dangerous. It can be absolutely life-threatening. So when people consume reishi, one, it's going to be alkaline. Two, it's going to be good for the parietal cells. Three, it's going to be good for mucus. And then it actually protects against acid reflux. And there's a crazy number. There's something like 79% of people that have gut acid issues cannot drink normal coffee, regular coffee, but at least 9 out of 10. So the exact number is 77.4. So I was off by a couple percent there. But when they drink our coffee's alkaline, 9 out of 10 can handle it immediately. And then those that can't, if we just dose them with capsules for a few days, then next thing you know, I've only seen one person in 11 years that after a few days of dosing capsules couldn't do it. So, you start looking, you come to realize every aspect of digestion gets better. Every aspect of health gets better. And then we go back to what your lead-in slide was, the gut-induced inflammatory process. So, at least 15 different anti-inflammatory mechanisms. It can lower the inflammatory process in the gut itself, as well as in the body, triggered by issues within the gut. So you get a double win on that one.
Yeah, anyone who's a coffee or tea lover, particularly coffee, but still has issues with the gut, their love for coffee is so powerful and so strong. For most people, they just put themselves through it, whether they have less coffee or they try and water it down or whatever it is. It's such a hard thing. It's such a hard habit to shake. And what I love about what we have as a digital franchise is that this is a much better version of what people love to enjoy. And we have this, the top superfood, the most potent version of reishi available in the world. I want you just last question on this, Dr. Bob, is just to talk about the quality, the potency that's actually available for our customer base around the world in such a delicious delivery system of coffee and tea. And how have your clients responded who may have been already caffeine sensitive? How have they responded to this in comparison to their regular cup?
You know, we have some people that had such severe caffeine responses that if they ever did deviate, there's a chance they would end up in the emergency room. And then suddenly going from very risky reactions to suddenly realizing every cell of their body, mind, and spirit is nourished by this. But when you start looking at quality, that's going to be the answer to everything. It's poor quality food that's messing up our gut. It's poor quality movement that's not allowing people to achieve the bodies that they want. And when you look at the quality of not just of our reishi, but the coffee itself, and the world's best organic coffee voted in 2022, with all these quality certifications, whether we're talking about GMP, which means it's processed in a clean room environment, kosher, halal, some of the strictest food codes on the planet, they have dotted the I's, crossed the T's. And you know what? If people that have the strictest food code are content with this, well, what about the rest of us? Don't we deserve the best as well? And I believe we do. So it's been my brand for 11 years now, and I know it's been years coming up on 10. And you know what? Like some of our team members say, you couldn't pay me to drink another coffee. That's me too. I know what my brand is, and I know what it does for me, and I won't do anything else.
Yeah, why would you when you realize you've got the best and it just feels right. It aligns with my system and makes me feel super focused, switched on, ready for action. And also, if anything needs to get out, it can accelerate that process. And I think that's really good that you can actually accelerate the process and not have things lingering when they should be passing through the body. Because as you mentioned earlier, if you have undigested, or sort of undigested, but sluggish matter in your colon, that will start to seep into your body, and that can cause some serious issues. So we want to make sure your toxicity or detoxification pathways are fast and efficient and really doing what they're designed to do. So guys, if you want to put this to the test, if you're seeing this for the first time, simplest thing is go back to the person who added you to our health community and ask them about trying our 1 box challenge. If you're joining us on Instagram, same rules apply. Drop us a DM and we'll share a little bit more about our 1 box challenge with you guys to put it to the test. But whether it's digestive health or overall well-being, physical performance, controlling the inflammatory process, we've found some absolutely amazing feedback from people all over the world in such a simple way. And as we mentioned before on multiple calls, Dr. Bob, you can be a purist. You can keep people away from sugar. You can tell them that's bad. But at the end of the day, people will do what they want to do based on their programming and what they truly desire. So we do have a sweetened, a sugar-friendly part of our beverage line with reishi that helps to offset some of the negatives of sugar, and it is organic cane sugar as well. So at least we have that. So just last point for you, Dr. Bob, around gut health. This is something that most people maybe don't pay enough attention to, but to get out of Dodge, it's, as you always say, it's best to stay out of trouble than have to get out of trouble. So make digestive health your priority. Look at some of the foods that we shared to start creating more vitality within your system. And go back through this call again. You might have nuggets of information that you'd like to listen to multiple times for things to settle in. But any closing comments for you, Dr. Bob, coming into the end of the call?
I think you framed that really, really well. People will not realize how good they can feel until they actually start taking these steps that everybody can take. And you might not feel better in a day, but you keep doing this consistently for a week or a month or a few months. And I think here's what you're going to realize. Wow, your whole body's going to feel better. Your inflammatory process is going to go down. Your immune system is going to be better. Your sleep is going to be better. Your body composition is going to be better. All that's going to be better. And it can start with simple, better choices. So go with the whole wonderful foods. And use whatever blend of reishi or cordyceps or even lion's mane that we offer to nourish the body, mind, and spirit to really accelerate the process. And I'll put in a plug. I think we're going to chisel it in stone, January 1 or whatever weekday of January, you and Isa helping everybody to just be their best self. And I'm gonna give you a big plug. Now training with you for a handful of months, I didn't know that I could feel this good again in my life. Turn back my clock a couple of decades. In things that I'm able to do comfortably. Shoulder pain much better, knee pain much better, mobility much better. Thank you for all that. I'm honored to be training with you.
My pleasure, Dr. Bob. The honor, as they say, is all mine. Just questions before we wrap up. I don't see any questions here on Facebook, guys. If you do have any questions, maybe just pop it in there really, really quickly, and we'll maybe address it. I just see comments of welcoming people or people sharing their enthusiasm around this subject, which is absolutely awesome. I did have a question on Instagram pop up second time, but I didn't want to interrupt you on your flow at the time. But it was someone who was asking about food combining. What are the food types that you shouldn't mix? If you could give a basic summary of that, Dr. Bob, one more time.
Well, if we were going to make it real simple, when people have serious digestive challenges, I don't have them mix anything. Only one food type per meal, and that's going to be what's easiest on your digestive system. But here's the simple summary. Fruits should always be eaten alone. Vegetables are flexible in that you can eat it with some type of starch, whether we're talking about a rice or a potato or a yam or maybe even a non-gluten grain. I'm not a fan of gluten grains at all. So many of those are distorted. Proteins can be eaten with vegetables, but proteins and starches don't go together. But the simplest way to combine your foods is don't combine them. One food per meal. And then in time, you're going to realize that, that might be a better way to go.
Beautiful. Guys, best thing to do is put it into practice. And that is the uniqueness about us is we're all individuals. Some foods may not feel good to you because of where you grew up, where the food has come from, where maybe it's a signal that the food isn't what it says that it is. And that's a lesson that you will learn, So experiment, guys. Vary your foods. Enjoy your foods. But be disciplined in the basics. Otherwise, you're going to be down a slippery slope, shelling out cash for unnecessary, unwanted interventions that you could have prevented. And one of our top, I would say, assassins or health Navy SEALs, inside the body for us is the King of Herbs, organic reishi, because it does so much for balancing the body. And we're passionate to share it with the world. So, guys, looking forward to our next week's call. This Thursday, we'll be talking about our digital franchise, how we are sharing this concept with people all over the world in a recession-proof business, because why not? This is such a powerful concept. We have great reach, and we have such a big mission for this coming year and the years ahead to do good and actually add so much value to the world. So if you want to tune in to that call, it will be on our other Instagram page if you guys are listening on Instagram, or on our entrepreneurial group on Facebook. So last comments up to you, Dr. Bob, to wrap the call.
Well, starting with the gut is a really good place to start. And so I'm going to encourage you in the holiday season. People put that on the back burner and they end up digging a hole for themselves to start the new year. But why not start with a good running, fresh start with a healthy gut, a healthy body, then take off and take it to the next level in 2024. And that's just your physical being. If you want every other part of your world, maybe consider partnering with us on other things, because we're here to make a difference and we're doing it with great tools and loving the process.
Awesome, Dr. Bob. Absolute legend to have you on this call, sharing your wisdom and your expertise. 33 years with some of the best athletes and some people who are really in a bad state of health and now are alive and well today. What an honor and a privilege it is to work with you, Dr. Bob. So guys, have an awesome day. Take action on the info, and we will see you on the next call coming soon. Ciao for now.
Ciao for now.